The church went silent the moment the richest man in the city started laughing. Chief Emeka Obi was not just rich. He was the richest man in Umuahia, the man whose name was on the new hospital wing, the man whose offering envelope alone could feed the whole choir for a year. So when the ushers say the next offering is coming from Ngozi, the blind girl who sells groundnuts by the roadside, and Chief Emeka throws his head back and laughs out loud in the front pew, the whole congregation freezes. Nobody understood why a coin, just one small coin, could make a billionaire laugh like that in the house of God. Somebody in the third row saw Ngozi's hand shake as she placed it in the basket and said nothing. And high above the altar, where the ceiling fan turned slowly, something else was watching, something that did not blink, something that had been waiting a long time for this exact moment. Ngozi was 19 years old and she had been blind since she was 7. The year the fever came and took her sight and left her with nothing but her mother's voice and her own 2 hands. Now this Sunday she comes to church, madam, with her small bench and her small bag of groundnuts, walking with a stick that taps the ground like a slow heartbeat. She had one coin, a single coin wrapped tight in a piece of cloth that she had saved for 3 weeks. She did not tell anyone how she got it. She only knew that when the offering basket passed, something inside her chest told her, give it, give all of it, so she gave. And Chief Emeka, sitting close enough to see, laughed until his shoulders shook and said, loud enough for half the church to hear, that God did not need beggars' money. To understand how this moment came to be, you have to go back to the morning everything started, 3 months before that Sunday, when Chief Emeka first noticed the blind girl outside his hospital gate. Chief Emeka Obi built his empire from nothing. Or at least that is the story he told at every business dinner, every newspaper interview, every church anniversary where they hung his portrait beside the pastor's. He owned 3 hospitals, a chain of supermarkets, and half the buildings on a bad road. He gave scholarships. He built boreholes. He was on paper and in every eye that looked at him from a distance, a good man, a generous man, a man blessed by God's own hand. His wife wore the finest lace to church every Sunday. His children studied abroad. When he walked into a room, people stood. When he spoke, people listened because his money had bought him something more valuable than respect. It had bought him silence. Nobody asked Chief Emeka Obi where his first million came from. Nobody asked why 3 of his early business partners disappeared from the city without warning. Nobody asked why his hospitals, which healed so many, also quietly buried patients whose families never got their bodies back for a proper viewing. Nobody except one old woman who sold groundnuts outside his gate and her blind granddaughter who came with her every day. Mama Chidinma had been selling roasted groundnuts outside the Obi Memorial Hospital gate for 11 years. She had seen ambulances come in screaming and leave in silence. She had seen night visitors arrive at odd hours, men in black cars with no hospital badges, carrying bags that were never explained. She had seen enough to keep her mouth shut, because a groundnut seller who talks too much about a billionaire's business does not stay alive to sell groundnuts for long. But her granddaughter Ngozi, blind since childhood, had something Mama Chidinma did not have. Ngozi could not see with her eyes, but she could feel things other people could not feel. She would grab her grandmother's wrist sometimes when the black cars pulled in and whisper, something is wrong here, Mama, something is wrong. And Mama Chidinma would tell her, hush, my child, hush, we are only here to sell groundnuts. This one no be small thing, Mama Chidinma would say to herself at night, staring at the ceiling of their one-room house. This one no be small thing at all. The first incident happened on a Tuesday. A woman came running out of the hospital's private wing, screaming that her husband had gone in for a simple procedure and had not woken up in 3 days and that the doctors would not let her see him. Security dragged her out to the gate, past Ngozi's small bench, and as the woman passed, Ngozi reached out and touched her arm without thinking and gasped, and pulled her hand back like she had touched fire. She said nothing to her grandmother that night. She only sat very still, her unseeing eyes wide open, until sleep finally took her. The second incident came 2 weeks later when a night nurse quietly quit and before she left the city for good, stopped to buy groundnuts from Mama Chidinma one last time. The nurse's hands trembled as she counted her coins. She leaned close and whispered that there was a room on the 3rd floor. That no ordinary staff were allowed to enter, a room where certain patients went in for treatment and never came out the same if they came out at all. She said the room smelled of something that was not medicine. She said she heard chanting some nights, low and rhythmic, coming from behind that door. Then she paid for her groundnuts and walked away fast and never came back. Ngozi heard every word. That night, Ngozi told her grandmother she wanted to go to church, even though they had never been regular church people. "Something is calling me there, Mama," she said. "Something wants me to go and see, even though I cannot see with my eyes." Mama Chidinma, who believed in her granddaughter's gift more than she ever admitted out loud, agreed. The first Sunday they attended, nothing unusual happened. Ngozi sat quietly through the service, her stick resting against the pew, and felt only the ordinary comfort of hymns and prayer. But on the second Sunday, during the sermon, she felt it. A coldness that moved across the back of the church like a draft from an open door that was not actually open. She turned her blind face toward the front, toward Chief Emeka Obi's seat in the reserved section near the altar, and she felt something she could not explain in words. It was as if a shadow sat beside him that had no owner, as if something was leaning close to his ear the whole time the pastor preached, whispering things only he could hear. She held her grandmother's hand so tight that Mama Chidinma winced. "What is it, my child?" she whispered. "There is something sitting next to him," Ngozi whispered back. "It is not human, Mama, it is not human at all." For the third Sunday, Ngozi decided without telling anyone why that she would give an offering, not a large one. She had no large amount to give, but she had been saving coin by coin from her groundnut sales, wrapping each coin carefully in cloth so she would not lose track by feel alone. When the offering basket came around that third Sunday, something in her chest, a voice she had learned never to argue with, told her, "Give it all. Give everything you have saved." So she did. That is when Chief Emeka Obi laughed. He laughed because in his world, money was the only language that mattered, and a blind beggar girl's single coin was nothing but a joke placed beside his own thick envelope of naira notes. He laughed because he did not know, could not have known, that Ngozi's small coin, given in complete faith, given in a moment when her spirit was more open than it had ever been, would do something his money never could. It would open a door. The church organ kept playing. The choir kept singing. Nobody else seemed to notice anything different. But Ngozi, sitting in her pew with her hands folded, felt the temperature of the room shift. She felt something enormous move through the air above the altar, something vast and quiet and terribly patient, arriving the way a storm arrives on the horizon long before the rain falls. And for one single second her blindness lifted. Not fully, not the way sight works for ordinary people. But she saw, in her mind, in a flash of light that came from nowhere and went nowhere, 3 tall figures standing behind the altar, their faces turned not toward the choir, not toward the pastor, but directly toward Chief Emeka Obi. She gasped out loud. Mama Chidinma grabbed her arm. "What did you see?" she whispered urgently. "My child, what did you see?" "I saw them," Ngozi whispered back, her voice shaking. "I saw the ones who are watching him. Mama, they are not happy." After the service, word had already spread through the church about the blind girl and her 1 coin and the billionaire's laughter. Some people found it funny too and repeated the joke to their neighbors on the way out. Others felt a strange discomfort they could not name, the kind of discomfort that makes a person want to change the subject quickly. Sister Patience, who ran the women's fellowship, told 2 other women that the blind girl's offering was probably fake anyway. Probably just a coin she found on the road, trying to make herself look holy in front of everyone. Brother Yuzo, who owed Chief Emeka favor from a business loan, told anyone who would listen that Chief Emeka was only laughing out of joy, that rich men laugh differently from poor men, and people should not read evil into a joyful sound. And the pastor himself, whose new car had been a gift from Chief Emeka's foundation 2 Christmases ago, quietly changed the subject during his closing remarks and never mentioned the incident again. 3 separate voices, 3 separate excuses, all working together without anyone planning it, to protect a man none of them fully understood. Ngozi walked home that day gripping her grandmother's arm tighter than usual. She did not speak the whole way. When they reached their small house, she finally said, "Mama, I do not think I am the fool everyone thinks I am for giving the coin. I think I was told to give it. I think something wanted that door opened." Doubt found her 3 days later, when a woman from the church, a well-dressed woman Ngozi did not recognize by voice, came to their small house carrying a basket of rice and beans. The woman spoke sweetly, told Ngozi that Chief Emeka had heard about the incident and felt terrible, that he wanted to make it right by sponsoring Ngozi's surgery, a surgery that could possibly restore some of her sight, all expenses paid, no conditions attached. All she had to do, the woman said gently, was come to a small private gathering at the chief's house, just to receive a blessing and pray together, nothing more. Ngozi's grandmother, hearing the word surgery, began to cry with hope. For one whole night, doubt crept into Ngozi's heart like water finding a crack. Maybe I misunderstood what I felt in church, she thought. Maybe it was only my nerves. Maybe this man is only trying to help me now and I am wrong to distrust him. But that night, as she lay awake, a verse rose up in her memory, clear and steady, the way her mother used to recite it to her before the fever took her sight. "Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord." The words settled into her chest like a hand placed gently over a wound. She sat up in the darkness and knew, without needing her eyes, that she could not go to that house. The next morning, she sent the well-dressed woman away with a simple message. "Tell your master I do not need his surgery if it comes with strings I cannot see." That same week, walking past the hospital gate with her grandmother, Ngozi felt the coldness again, stronger this time, and in another flash of inward sight, she saw it clearly. Beneath the hospital, in a hidden room, men in white coats stood in a circle around a bed, chanting words that were not prayers, drawing something invisible up out of a sleeping patient's body like smoke rising from a dying fire, and pouring that invisible thing into a shining container that Chief Emeka Obi held with both hands, his eyes closed, his face lit with a hunger no ordinary man's face should ever wear. She understood now, the hospital was not only healing people, it was harvesting them. Harvesting their strength, their years, their favor, their peace, feeding it all into whatever dark bargain Chief Emeka had made long ago to build his empire so fast, so impossibly fast, from nothing. That night, Ngozi knelt by her small bed and prayed in silence, her hands pressed together so hard her knuckles ached. "Lord," she prayed, "if you have shown me this thing, then use me to end it. I am blind, but you have given me eyes that see what others cannot. Use me." Chief Emeka Obi did not sleep well that week either. In the dark hours, in a private room at the top of his mansion, he knelt before a black stone altar hidden behind a bookshelf, an altar his father had shown him 30 years ago, the day he made the covenant that changed everything. That night the voices from beneath the stone spoke to him, angry and cold, demanding to know why a blind beggar girl's offering had disturbed the sealed door they had built between his world and the eyes of ordinary people. They told him the girl was a threat. They told him the girl must be silenced, one way or another, before her seeing spread to others. Chief Emeka, sweating despite the cool night air, promised he would handle it. The Trojan horses began arriving the following week, one by one, each more gentle than the last. First came the well-dressed woman with her surgery offer already refused. Second came an assistant pastor from the church, a kind-faced young man named Brother Chidi, who visited Ngozi's home with a Bible in hand and spoke softly about forgiveness, about not judging a man's heart from one moment of laughter, about how bitterness could close doors God wanted to open for her. Third came a distant aunt Ngozi had not seen in years, who arrived in tears, claiming she had heard Ngozi was in danger and begging her to move in with relatives far away, for her own safety, immediately that very week. Each visit felt warm on the surface. Each visit left Ngozi feeling colder underneath, the way a smiling face sometimes hides teeth. She refused them all, one by one, gently but firmly, and each refusal was reported back, through whispers and phone calls, to Chief Emeka himself. He came to her personally on a Thursday evening, arriving at the small groundnut stand in his black car, stepping out in his fine suit while Mama Chidinma's hands shook around her frying pan. "Ngozi," he said, his voice smooth as oil, "I have come to apologize for my laughter that Sunday. It was not kind of me." "I do not need your apology, sir," Ngozi answered, standing to face the sound of his voice. "I need you to leave this place and never come back." "You are a bold girl for someone who cannot see," he said, his tone shifting, the smoothness cracking just slightly at the edges. "I see more than you think, Chief," Ngozi said. "I have seen the room under your hospital. I have seen what you take from people while they sleep." Silence fell over the street. Even the traffic seemed to pause. "Do not touch me," Ngozi said, her voice steady though her heart pounded. "I know what you did. I know what you are still doing. This ends here tonight in front of everyone who can hear us." Chief Emeka's face twisted with something between rage and fear. He said nothing more. He turned, got back into his car and drove away too fast, tires screeching against the dry road. That night the attack came stronger than ever before. Ngozi woke in the darkness, unable to breathe, a weight pressing on her chest like invisible hands, whispers filling the room in a language she did not recognize but somehow understood as pure hatred. She fought to speak, and only one word came out, small at first, then louder. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. The weight lifted as suddenly as it had come, and she lay gasping in the dark, tears running down her blind eyes, her grandmother rushing in beside her, praying over her in loud, unbroken words until dawn broke through the window. From that night, Ngozi began a season of fasting, 3 days at a time, praying scripture over herself and her grandmother morning and night, speaking Psalm 91 aloud until the words felt carved into the walls of their small house. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. 2 weeks later, in the deepest hour of the night, Ngozi found herself standing in a place that was not her small room. In her dream, if it was a dream at all, she stood on a wide, dark plain under a sky with no stars, and across from her stood Chief Emeka Obi, but not as he appeared in daylight. Here his face was gaunt, his eyes hollow, chains of black smoke wrapped around his arms and connecting him to something enormous behind him that she could not fully see, something with too many eyes and a voice like grinding stone. "Give it back," the voice from behind him roared. "Give back what was opened." Ngozi did not run. She lifted her hands, though she could not see them, and felt heat gathering in her palms like sunlight concentrated to a single point. She spoke, and her voice did not sound like her own voice alone, it sounded like it was joined by many voices behind it. "No weapon formed against me shall prosper," she said, and every word struck the darkness like a blade of light. The chains around Chief Emeka's arms began to smoke and crack. The enormous shape behind him screamed, a sound that shook the dark plain itself, and then the whole vision shattered like glass, and Ngozi woke sitting upright in her bed, sweat soaking her nightclothes, her grandmother's arms already wrapped around her. "I won," Ngozi whispered. "Mama, I won." 3 days later, one of Chief Emeka's hospitals lost its operating license after a government inspection uncovered irregular patient records. Records that showed dozens of admissions with no corresponding discharge paperwork, no death certificates, no explanations at all. The inspection had not been planned. It had come from an anonymous tip that investigators later could not trace to any phone number or any name. A week after that, Chief Emeka's eldest son, the one being groomed to inherit the empire, collapsed suddenly at a business dinner and was rushed to a rival hospital, where doctors found nothing medically wrong with him, no explanation for why his body simply refused to wake for 6 full days. Chief Emeka Obi, for the first time in 30 years, could not sleep at all. He wandered his mansion at night, calling out to voices that no longer answered him the way they used to, his black altar now silent no matter how much he begged and bled before it. His wife left with the younger children that same month, taking what she could carry, telling the newspapers only that she needed space for her family's well-being. His business partners, sensing the shifting winds the way vultures sense a dying animal from far away, quietly began pulling their investments. The newspapers that once praised him began asking careful questions about missing patients and unexplained deaths. His portrait, the one hanging beside the pastors in the church foyer, was quietly taken down one Sunday morning, and nobody ever put it back up. But this was not the end of it. Somewhere in that grinding stone voice from the dark plain, something still moved, still waited, still had more to collect from a man who had signed away far more than he ever understood he was signing. Ngozi's sight did not return, not fully, not the way the world understands sight, but something in her had opened that would never close again. She began to see other things, other shadows, other silent rooms hidden behind other smiling faces in Hat Town, and she understood with a heaviness she carried quietly in her chest that Chief Emeka Obi's hospital was not the only door like that in the city, and would not be the last one she was called to stand against. Mama Chidinma still sold her groundnuts outside the hospital gate, though the gate was quieter now, the black cars gone, the chanting silence for the time being. People in the church still whispered about the Sunday the billionaire laughed, though most had already softened the story into something easier to forget, something closer to gossip than truth. Sister Patience still greeted Ngozi with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. Brother Yuzo still owed Chief Emeka money that Chief Emeka no longer had the strength to collect. Ngozi walked home from the market one evening, her stick tapping softly against the ground, and she thought about the coin she had given, one small coin wrapped in cloth, the only offering she had, and how it had opened a door that no amount of Chief Emeka's wealth could ever have opened for good instead of harm. She thought about how the world so often laughs at the small and humble hand, never knowing that heaven watches most closely exactly where the world refuses to look. Whatever you give in faith, even if it is the smallest thing you own, is never small in the eyes that are truly watching. If this story spoke to something quiet in you, something you have felt but never said out loud, watch the next one waiting for you, because the door that opened here is not the only one still standing ajar in this world.